Hey everyone, welcome to The Savoring. I'm Jimmy. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made these delicious fall off the bone pork ribs on my pellet smoker. So let's get started. So I start with a nice beautiful rack of some St. Louis style spare ribs, which is basically spare ribs that have been trimmed off to be a little more square. So I'm going to get these ribs unwrapped and get them patted dry with a paper towel just to get all the blood off of them. So these St. Louis spare ribs usually have a big flap of meat that's hanging down underneath. I like to just take that off because I don't want to have that hanging down whenever I'm smoking my ribs. So this rack has some loose pieces hanging. I'm going to take all that stuff off too. And then I think I'm just going to square the end up a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this membrane. Some people choose to leave the membrane on. I like to take it off. Some people just score it instead of removing it. But I find if I remove it, the smoke and the seasonings permeate into the meat even better. So I'm going to take this off. So on these spare ribs, the membrane basically starts on the straight end and then comes and where you see that flap of meat diagonally, it kind of ends right there. So basically you can start on this end and work your way that way, or you can start in the middle, you can start on the end. It doesn't really matter. There's different ways to do membrane removal. You just got to find what works best for you. So I just usually look for a little spot that's kind of sticking up, like this part right here. There's a piece of the membrane sticking up, so I'm going to just work it. Just kind of work my finger underneath it, and then there it starts to come off. So from there I can use this little flap to just go ahead and pull the whole membrane off. Okay, so I've got the membrane pulled off. It's to my liking. My next step is to put a binder on here, and then I can put my rub on there. So for the binder, I'm going to use yellow mustard, and then I'm just going to apply my rub right over that. Okay, I've got my rub, I've got my binder. So let me just put the mustard on the back side here. Just want to get the mustard all over the meat. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to put my rub on. I want to put a liberal amount of this on there. I just like to coat it completely, and then I like to sort of press the seasoning into the meat. Make sure it sticks really well. Okay, that side looks good. Now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the front side. Start with the mustard again. Spread that around. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to come on with my seasoning. Just want to get these things nice and coated. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to give it a press, get that seasoning into the meat. All right, that looks beautiful. So now these are ready for the smoker. I'm just going to wait for my smoker to heat up to 240 degrees, and I'm going to go put these on. Okay, so my smoker is at my target temperature, so it's time to put the ribs on. Okay, so now I'm going to put the ribs on the smoker face up, and I'm going to let them go for probably about 2.5 to 3 hours, and I'm going to spray them occasionally with apple juice. I'm going to put them on there, kind of straighten them up a little bit so that when they set, they're nice and straight. Push the meat together a little bit, and that looks pretty good. Just going to let it go. Okay, so the ribs have been on the smoker for about an hour at 240 degrees. Now I'm going to just open it up and take a look, and I'm going to go ahead and spritz them with some apple juice. Yeah, they're looking good. Starting to get some color, starting to get some smoke in there. Just want to spritz them really well to make sure they don't dry out. And we're going to come back and check them in about 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, so here we are about 2 hours into the cook. I'm going to give them another look and probably going to spritz them again. Yeah, they're looking a little dry on top, so they look like they could use another spritz. So let me go ahead and just spray them down one more time. That's been 2 hours, so I'm thinking by the way they look and the color and everything, I'm gonna give them about another hour before we wrap them. So we're gonna come back in an hour. Okay, so we're 3 hours into the cook, and now it's time to take the ribs off and wrap them. So we're gonna take them off now and bring them inside, and we're gonna wrap them. That's where the magic's gonna happen when we wrap these ribs. They are looking beautiful. Nice smoky color. The color looks great. So yep, they're ready to wrap. Okay, so I've got my foil, I've got my ribs, I'm ready to wrap. But before I wrap the ribs in the foil, I'm gonna put down some brown sugar, some honey, some butter, some of the rub, and some apple juice just to make some moisture. First thing I'm gonna put down is some honey. Just gonna put a little layer of honey. Then I'm gonna sprinkle some brown sugar over the top of that. Let me get my brown sugar, gonna put a little bit of this. It's gonna create nice sweetness and a nice sticky glaze on the ribs. All right, that looks good. Now I'm just gonna lay some butter. Kind of spread that out a little better. All right, now I'm gonna put a little bit more of my rub on there, just for a little extra seasoning. Don't want to put a whole lot, just a little bit, like that. I'm gonna just spray it with some apple juice just to create a little extra moisture inside there. This is what's gonna be the magic part of the ribs. This is what's gonna take the ribs from really good to exceptionally good. Okay, so I'm gonna take this rack of ribs and I'm gonna put it face down on top of all this stuff. Now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna put the same thing over the top of the ribs, or rather on the back side of the ribs. So I'm gonna put some more honey, put a little bit of honey on there, come in with my brown sugar. Now on the back side here, we're not gonna put any more butter. I think all the butter we need is on there. So I'm just gonna put the honey and brown sugar, a little bit more of the rub. Now I just want to wrap these up tight, so I'm going to come over here, I'm going to come over this way, I'm going to come over this way. Nice and tight. Fold up the ends. Now that's ready to go back on the smoker for about another hour to an hour and a half, and then we're going to check it. Okay, so the ribs have been cooking for about 2 hours wrapped. So I'm about to pull them off and open them up. Hopefully they're gonna be done, pretty much done. And I'm just checking for bone pull, checking for tenderness. And at this point, I'm gonna glaze them up with some of this barbecue sauce that I've made right here and put them on there unwrapped for about 30 minutes, let the sauce tack. But let's take a look at them, let's pull them off, unwrap them, see what they look like. Oh, I can already tell by the way it's folding that they're gonna be super tender. And this is just full of juice. Ah, look at those bones sticking out. I can already tell that these things are just super duper tender. Look at that. Let me just stick my probe in there just to see how tender. Oh yeah. There's literally no resistance at all in that meat. These ribs are done. Look how beautiful those look. Whew, man, look at all that juice right there. Definitely very juicy. I'm wondering if I'm even gonna be able to flip these over without them falling apart. These things may not flip over in one piece. Let me move this sauce out of the way. Okay, here we go. Let's try to flip these ribs. See if I can just hold them for a second. Okay, we got them flipped. That is one tender rack of ribs. Okay, look how beautiful they look. Now we just need to glaze this side. Let me grab my sauce. Just gonna glaze them up. These ribs only need to cook for about another 30 minutes, just long enough for this sauce to get tacky and adhere to the meat. And they are going to be ready. We're going to bring them in. We're going to let them rest for a little while, maybe 30 minutes or so. And we're going to cut into them and see what we got. All right, so I'm going to leave the foil open. Let me just kind of fold it down some. Create like a little boat. But I do not want to rewrap it. I'm going to leave it open. And just stick it back on there like that. Make sure that it stays open. We're going to let them go for about another 30 minutes. All right, so it's been 30 minutes. I just pulled the ribs off of the smoker and look how nice and beautiful the sauce tacked up on there. Kind of got a little bit darker. They've got a nice, beautiful color. These ribs are done. So the only thing left to do now is just let them rest for probably about 30 minutes and then dig into these things and enjoy. So here I am, I reached the end of my rib journey today. I smoked them for 3 hours unwrapped, 2 hours wrapped, and then another 30 minutes with the sauce on there just to get the sauce to tack up. So now it's time to cut into these things. I have no idea what they're gonna look like inside, but I'm really anxious to cut in and see what they look like and try a bite of these things. They look good, the color looks amazing. Got that nice dark red color to them. So let's cut one of these out of here and let's see what they look like. I like to cut from the middle because that's where you're gonna get a good representation of the smoke and all that, and the smoke ring and everything. So let's cut one of these out of here. All right, we got one. Let's see what this bad boy looks like. Oh yeah, got a lot of bone on that side. Let me flip it around. The smoke ring is really thick around the outside. They look amazing. I can't wait to try a bite of this. I gotta get a bite of one of these. Let's see. It's just pulling off the bone. It just won't even stay on the bone at all. It was just, man, look at that. Look, the bone just pulls right off. You gotta love a rib that the bone just pulls right off of. So delicious. I'm telling you. You guys gotta try these ribs. Super easy to make. They're just time consuming, but they're easy to make. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch all of our future videos so we can keep bringing you some great videos like these rib videos right here. We'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.